My neighbor's voice was shaking when she called me. Renata, there are people changing your locks right now. I didn't know if I should call the police. I was still in a hospital gown. There was an IV bracelet on my wrist. And my mother-in-law had just declared war. My name is Renata. I'm 34 years old. And I need to tell you exactly what happened the day I came home from surgery to find myself locked out of my own house. I'm a licensed occupational therapist. I help people recover from injuries, relearn how to move through the world, rebuild their strength after something has broken them. There's nothing glamorous about it. I don't make headlines. But I show up every single day, and I help people get their lives back. That's who I am. I married Derek 3 years ago. He's a good-looking man with a big, loud family that has very strong opinions about everything, including me. From the beginning, I wasn't what they had pictured for him. I didn't come from the right neighborhood. My family wasn't connected. His mother, Gloria, made it clear with every tight smile and every too long pause before answering my questions that I was tolerated, not welcomed. Derek was the one they always praised, the prized child, the one Gloria built her whole identity around, and I understood that loving him meant accepting all of them. What they never accepted was this. Before I ever met Derek, before I ever sat at Gloria's dinner table, I had saved for years and used a modest inheritance from my late grandmother to buy a house. My house. I was the sole name on that deed. I wasn't flashy. I wasn't loud. But I had something in that house they never bothered to read. If your in-laws ever made you feel invisible in your own home, hit that subscribe button right now. Drop your story in the comments below. You are not alone in this, I promise you. Click hype and let's go. The surgery had been scheduled for months. It was an outpatient procedure, nothing life-threatening, but serious enough that I had spent weeks coordinating my own recovery. I arranged for time off work. I stocked the kitchen. I set up the guest room downstairs so I wouldn't have to climb stairs for the first few days. I did all of it myself because Derek said the timing was bad at work and he couldn't take off. I told myself it was fine. I was used to handling things alone. The procedure went smoothly. I came out of anesthesia slowly, the way you do, like swimming up through warm, heavy water. A nurse handed me my phone and I saw 17 missed calls. One from my neighbor, Carol, several from a number I didn't recognize, and nothing from Derek. Carol's voicemail was frantic. I called her back immediately. Renata, there are people changing your locks right now. I didn't know if I should call the police. My mouth went dry. I called Derek. He picked up on the third ring. Hey, you okay? How'd it go? Derek. Carol says someone is changing our locks. What is going on? A pause, a long one. Just let them handle it for now. You need to rest. Let who handle it? Derek, what is happening? Another pause. Then I heard a familiar sound in the background. The click of heels, the clearing of a throat. And then Gloria's voice came onto the line, smooth and certain. This house is a family matter now, sweetheart. You can stay somewhere else while you recover. We'll be in touch. She hung up. I sat there in that hospital bed, still in my gown, IV bracelet on my wrist, and I felt something cold and quiet settle over me. Not panic, not tears, something much steadier than that. They had no idea whose name was on that deed. I checked into a hotel that evening. A basic one, nearby, because I didn't have the energy to go far. I was sore and exhausted, and still foggy from the anesthesia. Derek sent a text, not a call. It said, "It's just temporary. Mom thinks it's better this way." I stared at that message for a long time. The next morning, Carol sent me a photo. My belongings, boxed up in black garbage bags, left on the front porch. My medications were in one of those bags. My work clothes. My grandmother's quilt. Patris, Derek's sister, had posted a social media story that same night with the caption, "Protecting our family energy." There was a candle emoji. A few days later, a cousin I'd always liked, a woman named Bree, texted me quietly. She said Gloria had told the whole family at dinner that I had experienced a breakdown before surgery and had needed space. That I was unstable. That everyone should give Derek room to figure things out. At a family video call that weekend, someone forgot to remove me from the group. For 4 minutes, I sat with my phone muted, watching the little grid of faces, and I heard Gloria say clearly, "Derek needs someone more stable, someone from a good family." No one said a word. Then Derek came to the hotel. Not to apologize. He sat across from me at the small table by the window and he slid a document across the surface. It was several pages, printed and paper-clipped. A temporary living arrangement agreement drafted by Gloria's personal attorney. It's just to keep things calm, he said. You know how Mom gets. I picked it up. I read the first page, then the second. The language was careful, but the meaning was plain. If I signed it, I was agreeing to relinquish access to the property during my recovery period. Voluntarily, in writing. I looked up at Derek. I thanked him quietly. I told him I'd think about it. I had no intention of signing. Not because I was angry, though I was. But because the moment I saw that document, something became very clear to me. They had gone to the trouble of hiring a lawyer. They had drafted a formal agreement. And they still had not done the one thing that would have told them everything. They had never looked up who actually owned the house. Before I ever met Derek, I purchased that home with my own savings and an inheritance left to me by my grandmother. Her name was Lorraine. She used to say, "Always own the ground you stand on." I was 29 when I bought it. I was single and careful, and I paid a property attorney to handle every detail correctly. The deed was recorded in my name alone. When Derek and I got married, we talked briefly about adding his name. We never did the paperwork. Life moved forward and the conversation faded, and I, somewhere in the back of my mind, let it stay that way. I told myself it was just because we were busy. Maybe I knew something even then. What Gloria and Patris and Derek's attorney did not know was that I had also spent the last several months quietly documenting what life in that family had looked like. I had screenshots of Patris's texts, the ones where she called me ungrateful and told me I didn't understand how their family worked. I had a voicemail from Gloria demanding I transfer a sum of money to Derek's account for a family expense I had never agreed to. I had the hotel receipt showing the date I was forced to check in. And I had something else. Through Carol, I had obtained a copy of the locksmith's work order from that day, showing the address, the date, and the name of the person who had authorized the job. They thought they were protecting a family asset. What they hadn't done, not once, was read whose name was on the title. I reached out to Mr. Aldridge 2 days after Derek's visit. He was the attorney who had handled my original home purchase. Semi-retired now, but sharp in the way that comes from decades of seeing exactly this kind of thing. His office smelled like old paper and wood polish, the kind of smell that says nothing here is rushed. I explained what had happened. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he set down his pen and looked at me across the desk. They changed the locks on a property they have zero legal claim to, he said. That's not a family dispute. That's an unlawful lockout. Then he told me something I hadn't known. Years earlier, Gloria had contacted him directly. She had wanted to explore whether she could be added to the property deed for estate planning purposes. He had declined and documented the entire interaction. She had tried this before. She had just never found a way in. Meanwhile, I was hearing through Bree that Gloria was telling people the house would soon be transitioned into Derek's name as part of a family restructuring. Patris had apparently been to the house twice that week. Bree said she was measuring the spare bedroom. Derek stopped calling. He sent short texts, brief, businesslike. He had chosen without saying so out loud. They were already redecorating my house in their minds. They just hadn't checked with reality yet. Mr. Aldridge sent the legal notice on a Tuesday. It was addressed to Gloria, to Derek, and to the locksmith company. It cited unlawful lockout, demanded immediate restoration of access, and outlined the civil action that would follow if the matter was not resolved within 48 hours. Bree texted me that evening. She said Gloria had laughed when she read it. She had held it up and said, "She doesn't have the money to fight us. Derek will handle this." They agreed to come to Mr. Aldridge's office 2 days later. I think they expected a conversation. A negotiation. Something they could manage. Gloria dressed for it. Patris sat with her arms crossed and a small, tight expression that said she was already bored. Derek sat slightly apart from them, not looking at anyone. The room was quiet. Mr. Aldridge does not rush. He opened the folder in front of him, removed a single document and slid it across the table without saying a word. Gloria picked it up. She read it. She set it down. Then she picked it up again. "This has to be outdated," she said. Mr. Aldridge's voice was level. "It was recorded 8 months before the marriage and was never amended. Your daughter-in-law is the sole legal owner of that property. There is no joint title, there is no family claim." Patris leaned forward. "But Derek lives there." "As a spouse in a marital home owned by his wife," Mr. Aldridge said. "The same wife your family locked out while she was recovering from surgery. I also have documentation of a prior inquiry from Mrs. Gloria requesting to be added to that title, which I declined and recorded at the time. The air in the room changed. Gloria's face went pale in a way I had never seen before. Derek was staring at the table. Patris had gone very still. I had been waiting. I had been quiet through all of it, through the hotel room and the garbage bags on the porch and the voicemails and the document Derek had slid across that little table. But I had one thing left to say. I looked at Gloria, then at Derek. My voice was calm, I meant every word. I gave this family every chance to treat me with basic dignity. You chose this. So now I'm choosing too. I picked up the unsigned living arrangement document from the table. I turned it around and slid it back across to Derek, still blank, not a single mark on it. I won't be signing that. The locks were changed back within 24 hours. I drove home alone. I unlocked my own front door with my own key. I walked through the rooms slowly. The house smelled like it always had, clean and familiar, like laundry and wood, and the faint vanilla of a candle I had left on the counter. I sat down on the couch, and I stayed there for a long time without turning on any lights. Derek moved out that week. It was his choice. Legal separation paperwork followed shortly after. Gloria never called. She never sent a message. She simply went quiet, which was its own kind of answer. Bree told me later that the family had mostly stopped talking about it, that the story had shifted and softened in the retelling until it was barely recognizable. That's what happens when the truth is inconvenient. I went back to work 2 weeks after surgery. My patients noticed something different about me. One of them, an older man I had been working with for months, said, "You seem lighter." I told him I had just put something down that I had been carrying for too long. My grandmother's photograph is still on the mantel. Lorraine, with her steady eyes and her wide smile. The woman who left me enough to buy the ground beneath my feet and told me to always stand on it. They locked me out of my own house. They drafted documents. They made calls and spread stories and sat in that office thinking they had already won. But the thing about owning something truly, having the deed and the date and your name recorded and filed, is that no one can take it from you without your signature. And I never signed. Has someone in your family ever tried to take something that was legally, rightfully yours? Something you built, something you earned, something that had your name on it? Tell me what happened in the comments. I want to hear your story. Subscribe to this community, because none of us should have to fight these battles feeling alone. Click hype to help this story reach everyone who has ever been pushed out of their own life. Standing up for yourself is tough. If you've been there, subscribe and become part of our community. Let me know this story helped by clicking hype. And tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel.